Welcome to another episode on The Authentic Married Woman. Today we're going to be revealing the truth about why your husband lies. And I'm your host, Karen Seitz. I'm a mentor and coach for married women to teach them how to find their happiness within, take down their walls, and create the marriage and life that they always dreamed of. And today I'm joined by David Cope, founder of a New Life Center. Hi, David.
Hi, Karen.
How are you
Good
today?
day. I'm doing great. I just
Good.
feel alive and excited to do our video today and share this insider's secret view of uh, marriage and relationships. And it's wonderful to share this with you. I got involved with relationships after I got a divorce in the year 2000. I guess when I was married, I was a good guy, a good man. I always tried to work hard to make sure I was doing everything I could to make my wife happy. But after 20 years, my wife came to me and said that she wanted a divorce, and I was devastated. And I committed myself to doing everything I could to learn about what it makes to have a happy relationship. And I didn't want to be on my deathbed wishing that I had done enough work that I missed out in my life in an intimate and loving relationship. Interestingly, after I got divorced, uh, I came to the realization that I could never have made my wife happy, and all the efforts that I did as a good man to make her happy could never have been done, would never have worked. But I didn't realize that till after I got out of my marriage, and kind of set the foundation of what we're teaching today. That I realized if I want to have a loving and intimate relationship with my partner, I want my partner to hear me, to understand me, to get me, to know who I am. I have to have all of those experiences with myself first. And to do that, I had to build a relationship with myself and to be true to myself. So I met Peggy, my partner, about 15 years ago, and we've been working together in our relationship to be true to ourselves and to find our happiness within ourselves. But we also have been teaching others, begging men and women, and myself, men and women, how to find their happiness within, so they don't give that power away to their partner and need them to do things to make them happy, because we all know that happiness is an inside job. But we get caught up in marriages and the problems and thinking our partner is the source of unhappiness, and we really get lost in the realization that nobody can make us happy, and I have to find that within myself. And that's what we teach people in relationship courses at the New Life Center. So this is an interesting topic about what's the name of the topic again, Karen?
The truth about why your husband lies.
Good. So as we get into this, can you talk about the three principles that we have that guide us in our both at New Life Center in our relationship course and in our Facebook group?
Of course. So we have three principles that we like to start these videos off reminding you what they are, because they're really easy to forget, because we get caught up in wanting to make the issues and the problems in our marriage our husband's fault or somebody else's fault, and don't want to look at ourselves. So these are
Yeah.
always just good tools to have in your back pocket and to remind yourself of. And the first principle is that you're responsible for your happiness. That, like David said, happiness is an inside job. There's nothing that your husband can do or stop doing to make you happy. You've got to find your happiness within
Mhm.
and continue to take care of yourself and do the things in your life that allow you to be happy and to be your best self.
Mhm.
Our second guiding principle is the only person you have any control over to change is yourself. You
Mhm.
can't change your husband can't change you, and that if you want to see change and you want transformation in your life and your marriage, you've got to be the one to roll your sleeves up and dig in and do the work to change. And even though that can be hard work, it's
Mhm.
so much easier because it's exhausting trying to get somebody else to change because it doesn't work.
Yeah.
The third guiding principle is that being an authentic married woman, or even an authentic woman, is about having a relationship with
Good.
yourself.
Yeah.
and feeling good about who you are. And we get there and we have that relationship with ourselves and we feel good about ourselves by taking responsibility for our happiness, by
Mm.
realizing that we're the only ones that we can change. And when we do that, we're able to show up as who we are without
Mm.
our walls, open and soft
Mm.
within ourselves, which changes everything in a marriage or a relationship and everything in your life.
Mm. And also, but what's the narrow perspective that we work with in our course, relationship course, and a Facebook group? Or
Yes. So we're here to serve and work with women who know that they have their walls up or are curious and think they might possibly have their walls up and want to find out, and that they're married to or in a relationship with a good man.
Mhm.
And a good man is a man by nature whose intentions are good,
Mm.
who, when you married him, the
Mm.
man you married was trustworthy, predictable, responsible by nature, and hardworking. And you might see some changes in that, but what we teach is that if you're experiencing negative behaviors with your husband, who's a good man, and you're a woman with your walls up,
Mhm.
he's responding and reacting to your walls being up.
Yeah.
So when you take your walls
Mhm.
down, he feels safe in the relationship again, and everything can change, and he starts to respond and react to you differently. And so that's our message, and those are the women that we're here to say to serve and teach these concepts to. And that
Great.
this what we teach doesn't work in any other kind of relationship.
What other the types of relationship can you give an example or other types of
Yes,
relationship?
being with what we call a bad boy,
Yeah.
a man who isn't trustworthy, who is not predictable or is unpredictable, who's emotionally unavailable,
Yeah.
or being in an abusive relationship of any kind.
Yeah.
What we're teaching doesn't work
Yeah.
in that dynamic.
Okay. Thank you,
Yeah.
Karen. So the topic again is
The truth about why your husband lies. I'm so
okay.
excited to dive into this. It's
Well,
a fresh perspective.
and again, for the women listeners, we do these videos because one of the principles is the only person you can change is yourself. And if you can see yourself in the videos that we're talking about and can open yourself to it, then it gives you things that you can be doing to change yourself in your marriage and see results that have nothing to do with your husband when you're the good man. And this empowers you to be in control of your marriage so you no longer feel trapped and hopeless like there's no way out. So if you can see yourself and know that the things that we're talking about are common amongst women and that these are common experiences, then you can see that okay, what if I change this about myself? Let me see how if it might influence my husband's behavior and see if it can make a positive impact on our marriage, and so you don't feel so trapped and powerless and think that your husband is the source of your unhappiness. So let's jump into this. How do we get started? Karen, you did this about why your husband lies. So why
Yes,
did you do that?
because we think when our husbands withhold something or they're not telling the truth about something, we automatically jump to they're lying to us. They're intentionally being deceitful, intentionally betraying us or lying to our face on purpose. And what we've discovered, what I've discovered in my own marriage and working with other women in their marriages and in working with men, is with good men, they're not actually lying. And so that's why we have the lying in quotes. And we're going to talk about why they're not telling the truth and what we have control over in that.
So what's the difference between lying from a good man's perspective and not telling the truth? That sounds like semantics, and you're
Yeah.
excusing the men for not taking responsibility and being honest about what's happened. Can you
Yeah.
give an example, Karen, of a good man not telling the truth as opposed to lying so our listeners can understand what we're talking
Sure.
about?
Sure. So I actually have an example from my own marriage. And this was an example of my husband not telling the truth. And this was a couple of years ago when my husband and I were going through a rough patch, and
Mm.
um, things were a little tumultuous. And I was constantly upset with my husband and constantly on his case about drinking, and did not like that my husband would have a beer and, maybe a beer and a shot after work, and was constantly on his case about that. And I discovered one day I didn't treat him kindly about that at all. Like I said, I was constantly berating him, constantly making him wrong. And one day I found a beer can in his work bag and an empty shooter. And I got really upset and thought he was lying to me. And that was not the case. He was scared of how I was treating him and what my reactions were in that instance. And so he was covering up because he was scared of getting in trouble with me and how I was going to respond to him drinking. And it doesn't make that right or
But
okay,
right.
the the withholding or him hiding. It doesn't make that okay. It's understanding that that's coming from a reaction place of me having my walls up.
Okay, so good. So what is that? Why does a man, in our case, the woman said, well, he lies to me. He told me he would do this, and I found out later that he did something totally different. It's a very common scenario, and he lied to me.
Yeah.
Why do men lie to their wives? Because the women have their walls up, and of course the women say, well, why can't he just be honest and tell the truth? And why can't he be man enough to stand up and take it like a man and tell the truth? But
Yeah.
as a good man, why do women having their walls up cause them to act and behave in ways that they might not normally do?
Well, when we have our walls up and we're willing to, as women, slow down and be honest with ourselves about our behavior and how we show up with our husbands when we have our walls up, then we can see that we find everything wrong with our husbands and find overt ways and subtle ways to make them feel wrong. We're pushing them away from the hurt and blame that we're carrying around in ourselves. And we do that oftentimes by being distant,
Mhm.
by being cold, um, by flying off the handle at the smallest thing our husband does that we don't approve of, by not accepting them for who they are and constantly judging them for what they're doing. So when we respond that way with our walls up, good men, they become scared of how we're treating them with our walls up, and so they go into protective mode
Yeah, protection.
essentially.
Yeah.
And so that's why they're not telling the truth. Again, it doesn't make it okay or just excuse that behavior, but it's understanding where that's coming from and that they're going into protective mode, and to realize when we drop our walls and we can be
Hmm.
accepting and open in the relationship, they can feel safe again, and they can be honest and forthcoming about different things going on in the relationship.
Thank you, Karen. So
Yeah.
a good example might be, because I imagine some of our listeners saying, well, again, well, why can't he just man up and tell the truth?
Yeah.
And of course that's ideally what you would like your husband to do, but a good man is a lot like when we were children growing up, and our parents said, did you do your homework tonight? Yeah, I did. Are you sure you got all your homework done? Yeah, I got it done. Or did you brush your teeth?
Yeah.
Yeah, I brushed my teeth. Or, all the times that we would say when our parents would ask us to do so, if we did something, and we would tell, oh, were you out drinking last night?
Yeah.
I
Nope.
smell smoke on you. Have you been smoking?
Yeah.
No. And of course you say, no. Is that lying? What we're trying to help you understand is that what happens when we do that is because we're scared that we're going to get punished by our parents, a person of authority, and we in order to protect ourselves from the punishment, we tell what's called a lie. but it isn't intentional to be deceiving and to hurt the parents, or it's just a protection mode. And we do that because we're scared to be punished. So with good men in a marriage, they're afraid that if they tell the truth to their wife, that they will be um, made to be wrong and bad, and to make make them feel like they're untrustworthy, or that they've been betrayed by them not telling the truth. So the point here is that with a good man, he's not really lying. He's in protective mode, and he's doing that because he's so scared. He's so afraid that if he actually tells the truth, that his wife will come down on him and crush him, and make him feel shamed. And then over time, what happens is he just builds up this pattern of, well, I better not tell the truth, because if I do, I'm just going to get blasted and rolled
Yeah.
over. And again, that doesn't make it right for men to do this, but it's just a behavioral pattern that is created over time when women have their walls up and push men away and make them feel wrong and bad. Remember, we did that video about Mr. Right and Mrs. Always Right. When you're Mrs. Always Right with your husband, he begins to be, he feels like he is wrong and nothing he can do is right. So basically, he stops trying to be honest and truthful in ways that often wives can perceive as lying and being deceitful.
Yeah. Well, and
The fun,
often, or go ahead.
go ahead. No, it's
I
fine.
was going to say also when we have our walls up, and it's really important as we're talking about these things, I always like to throw this reminder in that when we're showing up in these ways as women with our walls up, it's unconscious behavior.
Yeah.
And until we're able to slow down and be honest with ourselves and look at it, then we can't do anything about
Yeah.
it. So the point of
We don't
looking at
even know that's
this,
there. Yeah.
yeah, is not to beat ourselves up, but so we actually see what we can change
Yeah.
that will change everything. And
Yeah.
I know with my walls up, I do punish my husband. So if he
Yeah.
does something I disapprove of or I think is wrong, then or I'm blaming him that he does that and that makes me unhappy, I can punish him for weeks with
Yeah.
the silent treatment or a lot of times we might withhold sex as punishment. And they don't want those things to happen. They don't want to be punished for days or weeks on end.
Mhm.
And so they're going into protective mode.
So another way for women to look at this is, and this might be even the harder part,
Yeah.
the reason why when your husband lies, it might make you so angry, and maybe some women say they get in a rage when they're. I mean, there's nothing worse than a husband that lies to me. Is really because as women, and when we live in our mind, and men do this too, but what happens with women is they create a facade of who they want the world to be, and they live in this facade, and in a sense they know they're pretending who they are, and they're trying to live in this facade, in this pretend protection mode of creating the facade, which ultimately means that they're lying to themselves at a very deep and fundamental level. They are not truly who they say they are, which we talk about many times about why women get married. They get married to have children. They get married because they don't want to be alone. They get married because it's supposed to do. But all of those things are not because you want to have a deep, intimate relationship with a man. It's because you have a facade
Yeah.
and you want to get a man. And we know, we've learned over the years that women can create the environment to get a man. And when you do that, what happens is that you created a facade, a chameleon to become who you think you need to become to become your husband. And you, at a fundamental level, that you know you're not being true to yourself and you're lying to yourself. So when a woman gets raged by a husband lying, or even upset, is really a projection of their own sense of pretending and lying to themselves in life. I know sometimes I work with women, and they say that I lie so much that sometimes I don't even can't remember what is true and not, and I get so entangled in my lies. But because they don't want to see that in themselves, they project that onto their husband. So when he is not telling the truth, it becomes this blown up situation. And hopefully, when women can realize that a good man is just going into protection mode and he's not intentionally hurting his wife by deceiving her and being malicious, like a bad boy would do, which is by the nature of a bad boy is to be deceitful and to misrepresent himself um, for manipulative behavior. So if you can, women can be understand is if lying in your husband really bothers you, it's really because you're lying to yourself and you're not allowing that to be worked out and to understand and it makes it really hard to be in a relationship when you still haven't resolved that issue within yourself.
The things that we dislike or
Mm-hmm.
even as strongly as hate in other people are
Mm-hmm.
because those are the things within ourselves that we're so desperately hiding from and don't want to see. I remember when I
Karen,
first,
sorry to interrupt you.
yeah,
Can you repeat that again? Because it's
yeah,
really so hard for us. Because the very thing that we say, I don't want to know myself, like often women say, I don't want to know myself as a victim. No, I
yep,
don't want to know myself as a martyr. It's the last thing. I don't want to know that I lie.
yep.
But when you see that in others and it bothers you so much, then it's because you don't want to see it in yourself. Could you say that
Yeah.
again? Sorry, Karen.
It's okay. And that's exactly where I'm going is about
Yeah.
victim. That when we very deeply dislike or hate something in other people, we can't stand it.
Mm-hmm.
That's because it's inside of us and we don't want to expose that and we want to hide from it because if we saw that, it would cause us to be vulnerable and exposed and we would have to change.
Mm-hmm.
When I first started to learn to take down my walls and take responsibility for my happiness, one of the very first things I had to start to work on is seeing myself as a victim,
Mm-hmm.
meaning victim mentality,
Yeah.
blaming something or someone else for the experience of ourselves and our lives. And I remember David is my mentor and one of my teachers, and I remember sitting there as he was trying to teach me about victim, thinking, I'm not a victim. I've read all these wonderful books. I've taken all of these workshops. I am not a victim. I do not blame. I can't stand people with victim mentality. And that's because there was so much of it in me. And
Mm-hmm.
and it's humbling and it's vulnerable, but when we can be honest about those things, that's when we give ourselves the opportunity to change in ways we could never imagine
Mm-hmm.
by seeing those things, because until I see it, I can't do anything about it. And I'm going to keep pushing it away and keep saying, that's not me. That's not me.
Yeah.
And that goes right back to what David was saying, those very things that we're trying to cover up because we want to keep up our facade of who we
Mm-hmm.
present to the
Oh.
world
Mm-hmm.
are the very things we have to burst our bubble on in order to
Mm-hmm.
be able to change and move forward in life, because those are the very things getting in our way. So when we can accept those things, that's where real change happens. And it
Mm-hmm.
is hard work, but it's worth every step of the way because the benefits are so
Mm-hmm.
rewarding and fulfilling. Yeah,
Thank you, Karen. So
sure.
can you kind of do a wrap up of our message today? And what's the
Yes.
myth that we were busting? We forgot to say the myth that
The myth, the myth is that when you think well, not when you think, but if your husband is withholding or hiding things from you, the myth is it's not lying. It's that he's not telling the truth because of how he feels unsafe in your marriage because of
mm,
how you show up with your walls up. And again, that's not bad or wrong. We throw our walls up because we've gotten our hearts broken in life and
yeah.
we've gotten
Mm,
hurt. So
mm,
we're in protective mode. So it's important to remember men and women are different. We're wired differently, and how we
mm.
go into protection mode looks different. And
Yeah,
as
good
women,
point.
how we go into protection mode is we put our walls up,
Yes.
and how we behave in that is on a very unconscious level, very hurtful. And
Mm,
so a good man becomes scared of us when we have our walls up because can become quite punishing and unkind and make them feel wrong. And
Mhm.
so when we can take our walls down with a good man, then they will start to feel safe again and show up
Mhm.
and have the courage and
Mhm.
strength again to tell the truth and be honest about things in the relationship because they can trust us. I'll
Mhm.
never forget a few months ago, my husband came to me and said, I just want you to know how safe I feel in our relationship now
Mhm.
and how worth all of this hard work we've been doing has been. And thank you for allowing me to be myself again.
Mhm.
And that's a result of taking my walls down and being accepting of my husband, knowing that yes, he's a great man, but he's not perfect. He's not without flaws, just like I'm not. One of the things I wanted to mention in this, ladies, is how many times have you put money on your credit card or
Yeah.
bought that extra shirt or bought that dress and hid it away or scheduled the package to be delivered from your online purchase while your husband's at work or isn't at home. We're doing the same things. We just don't want to be honest about that with
Yeah.
ourselves. So none of us are perfect. None of us are without flaws.
Yeah.
And when we can accept those flaws in ourselves, we can show up with our husbands in whole new ways. So, yeah,
Thank you, Karen.
of
Good job.
course. Yeah. And so if you struggle with this a lot, if you think your husband is lying to you all the time and you're so frustrated by that and you're
Mhm.
listening to this and you're thinking, the man I married was definitely, he's a good man at heart and maybe I do have my walls up and I'm sick of living like this. I'm sick of feeling trapped. I'm sick of feeling like this isn't going anywhere and like my marriage is on the brink of divorce every second of every
Yeah.
day.
Mhm.
And you've tried counseling, you've tried the books, you've tried the other things, the love languages, and it's not working and the same problems keep popping up.
Mhm.
Let's have a conversation. Let
Mhm.
me help you get clear on what's really going on in your marriage, not the stories you're telling yourself.
Mhm.
And if I can help you to get unstuck and get to where you want to be, then we'll talk about that. If not, it's okay. You will get clarity that you have never gotten before by this
Mhm.
phone call. So if you're interested in having some time with me and having a conversation, then shoot me a private message on Facebook and we'll set up a time to talk. And I would really look forward to that. So thank you,
Great,
David.
Karen. Thank you. Well, that was
Yeah,
wonderful. And it's always a pleasure sharing this with you because it's so exciting to watch you grow and
thank you.
live these concepts in your marriage and knowing that it's a work in progress and
It
we're
is.
marriage is always bringing up new things and pushing us to see ourselves if we're wanting to grow and learn and it's
Yeah.
very exciting and refreshing to be watching you and being able to take that back to help the women that you work with so passionately and help them create happiness and transform their marriage and it's very
Thank you.
exciting and I'm really it's a joy to share this with you so thank you so much, Karen.
Thank you, David. And
And
thank you to all our
hey,
listeners. And
bye
we'll see
bye.
you next time. Bye.